Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
New here, but I got a story to tell. It's not so much paranormal, more so just a creepy tale that I occasionally tell to people. It should be noted this involves an encounter between me and a cult that I could find no trace of in local, statewide, or even national news. It had no presence verbally, and there was no evidence I had to provide that it existed. This story took place back in 2016, just a few months before I left for boot camp. I worked at a GameStop in a small town in northwest Alabama, and it was late in the year. I was an assistant manager that was overseeing the release event for whatever Call of Duty it was that came out then. I remember pushing the sales for Modern Warfare Remastered pretty hard, but that's besides the point. I was wrapping up late that night, around 1 to 2 in the morning. The GameStop I worked at was around 30 minutes away from my house. The county I lived in was Walker County, which I'm sure draws blanks for a lot of you guys, but anyone familiar with the area knows it's got its weird shit. I won't go too far into it, rather I'd just tell you to look up whatever you can find and dig in. Backcountry rural Alabama is at worst interesting. Besides the point, it was super early in the morning, I was tired, and my car, at the time a Hyundai Elantra, Chad car I know, needed gas. I stopped off at a gas station, and the way people there were acting, shit they were doing just made me real fucking uneasy. I didn't have a firearm and I wasn't about to risk anything at that gas station. I knew of one just outside of town that didn't turn their pumps off at night, and so rather than take the risk of getting followed or some shit, I just went with the latter idea. To a lot of you, backroads rural Alabama in the middle of the night may sound a lot worse, especially considering this is a spoopy storyboard, but to me, it was normal and I didn't think much of it. I got my gas, left the station, and rather than take the highway back home, I figured I would just take the back roads home, extending my commute by a hefty amount. Can't say as I remember the actual time it would have taken while I was looking at it on my Google Maps, but I remember it not being enough for me to say fuck that. So, with little to no thought, I took off into the night. The few homes that there were had streetlights out by the roads that would illuminate a larger area, in that pale orange that old and burning lights have, and they all kind of just grew farther and farther apart until there were hardly any. So I didn't have much cell reception, and stupidly, I thought that if I closed out all my apps that would help my music load, and I lost my GPS. Though I trusted my judgment to get me back home, slightly worried at the sudden loss of signal. I searched on the radio for music to listen to instead, mostly classic rock, contemporary country, and Christmas music at the time, so I settled with the latter. I was jamming out to Jingle Bell Rock, Anons shit was based, but the signal started fading, which was only normal to me. If my phone was losing reception, so was my radio. What was weird, however, was that as I was searching, I remember coming across 101.2, and it was playing some music I could barely hear in the background with loud beeps, and that's the best way I can describe them. Would overlay the music and static without any given pattern. I was starting to get a little creeped out, but I figured that, with a full tank of gas, it was going to take a lot more than a hillbilly numbers station to screw with me in a car. I turned back to Bluetooth and started listening to the music I had downloaded, which wasn't much. I figured it wouldn't be long until I was back in signal anyhow, and so I kind of let it all slip my mind. I was somewhat tired and just ready to get home and go to bed. Some 5 to 10 minutes later, I saw lights out in the distance facing down the road, silently rejoicing that in the midst of the night I wasn't the only one out here. I remember, though, that in this long stretch of road where there was no light, save for my car and the car in front of me, that I was quickly gaining on the car in front of me. I was coming up on it faster and faster until I realized it was stopped. As I got closer, I realized its trunk was open, and clothes and what looked like bags were tossed all over the road. Sitting in the middle of the road, however, was that of a baby carriage. Not some old and antique one, a brand new one, like someone had just bought it. This part is where it gets hard for me to talk about it. Like right now I'm having a hard time even typing it. I rolled down my window and started hollering to see if anyone was around, and I heard nothing. Nothing except for the cries of a baby. Mainly when I recall this story, I leave this part out because it's so hard for me to talk about, but it's what I saw and I don't think I'll ever forget it. I slowly approached the carriage, staying cautious of anything and everything around me, any movement in the thicket of the tree line, anything at all. As I crept up to the cradle, I remember what looked like a skinned animal, laying there motionless and a speaker sitting next to it. Come to think of it, it could have been a baby monitor. I gasped and stepped back, eyes still on the thing, and I quickly realized that the baby sound was coming from the monitor. I couldn't stop staring down at that, and I think the worst part was an accumulation of things. I realized in the horror of the moment that if it was a baby monitor, then there was somebody out there using it to draw me closer to the carriage, away from my car. This realization struck me and I froze where I stood. I remember breaking from my stillness when the little beast eyes jolted open and it started screaming in pain. I was horrified and in complete terror, sprinting back to my car. I remember trying to act like a badass, stopping at my car door and threatening the tree line with all sorts of fuck yous and shit like that, the screaming thing still howling in the background. I got in my car, locked the door and floored it, having left it on. I looked down to realize that around only 2 minutes had passed. It was more than enough time for anyone to take my car, and I still can't figure it out. But as I blazed past the carriage on the road, I remember seeing torches lighting up, revealing robed figures. They lit up in sync form near to far and started walking towards the road in the opposite fashion when all of their torches had been lit. I was so confused and horrified. Their robes were varying colors of black and red, and the line of them on either side of the road went on for what looked like a quarter of a mile or so, all equally spaced out. I went from around 15 miles per hour to around 80, and as I neared the last of them at the end of the line, 2 other torches lit up, revealing a man standing in the middle of the road in simple clothes with a hood over his head and what looked like a massive book on the ground in front of him, with his hand held over it. I quickly checked my phone for a signal. No dice. I raced as fast as I could around curves and corners, up and down hillsides and all. However, something struck me as I slowed down to breathe. There were headlights behind me the entire way. The car that was on the side of the road, a small maroon sedan, was chasing me down. I quickly checked my phone for a signal and found that I had bars but no service. Fidgeting around on my phone and going a flat 80 down a back road, I accidentally turned off my Bluetooth, which my radio system always took as a sign to go back to playing FM. The dots from earlier were now blaring at a faster pace. In the background, I heard the music louder and more clear this time. It was my voice singing a song. I remember it being something I recorded on Snapchat and posted to my story. A terror built inside of me as I heard the beeps grow faster and faster, the car gaining on me all until I neared a sign that pointed me in the direction of my hometown. I slammed on the brakes and fishtailed into the road back. Time passed by as I kept going until all at once the station went quiet and I had a signal again. I've always retold this story, either with parts added in or some things excluded to see if people reacted to the minor shifts and changes. There had to be an untold number of people standing on the side of the road that night, and I don't remember counting. However, if I had to say around 100 people, that combined with the fact that they had access to my Snapchat, albeit many didn't make me any more comfortable. I called the police department in a panic and retold the story in summary to them. The entire time I could hear the lady on the other end occasionally sigh or laugh quietly, but she told me that next time I shouldn't get out of my car and that I shouldn't drive so fast. On the surface, that seems like a mundanity, however. I never mentioned having to get away from the sedan to her, or that I was going fast at all. I only had given her a description and a relative location. Upon my saying this, the lady just laughed and hung up. After that, I resolved that the only people I would tell were those who could have no possible connection, be it that they lived too far away, were too young, or people that I had just met. I've since moved, else I would go back down that road, and I can honestly say I'm not so young and mousy as I was then. Maybe someday I'll go back that way and show someone.
There's cults all over the place. Nobody talks about them because 99% of the time it's just a few dozen crazy spurgs who do crazy spurgy shit. Not even entertaining crazy shit. Just the kind of cringy, sad kind of stupid that makes you pity them. Source: was raised in one. Well, the cult started back in the 40s. Some wandering road preacher from Seattle showed up in western Montana and claimed the ghost of a Native American named Chief Redcloud showed up when he was sleeping in his car and told him that Mormons were cool, but they translated the golden tablets wrong, because he put the magic hat on backwards for a portion of it. God wanted them to set down roots in Montana, not Utah. Redcloud ought to know, since he was also a Nephilim. So Mr. A road preacher revivalist man convinces several families of local dirt farmers to combine their land into a commune, one of whom was my grandpa. They founded a new township about 15 miles outside of a nearby town in a valley that had the railroad going through it, and they thought Interstate 90 would be built through there too. So at first, everything seems good. The train stops there. They're about to get an interstate put through. Lots of timber mining in the area, so lots of economic opportunity. Well, there's about 200 people out there by the 1960s, all rural, poor, mostly uneducated. My grandpa, for example, never finished the 8th grade. Well, the railroad shuts down, and the interstate don't get built. The engineers choose to select another route instead. Less economic activity, but they've always been poor. Plus the Indian ghost, Nephilim only Mr. Preacher Man can see, is pretty insistent that this is the spot, so they stick around. Well, there's no hospital out there. And Mr. Preacher Man decides doctors are the devil, so folks who get sick get prayer instead of medicine. When adults die from preventable diseases, it's sad. When babies are denied life-saving medical treatment, people start leaving. Details are unclear, but like 3 or 4 babies died from dumb shit like pneumonia or measles and shit in the 70s. Preacher Man has a seizure and dies. By this point, about half of the people have left, and my grandpa takes over as leader. He decides all that no doctor's shit was bullshit, and some folks stay around. About 75 or so. Mostly because as long as you tithe 25% to the church to cover community utilities, it's rent-free to live out there. Anyways, a few opportunists show up who just want cheap rent. They're not very savory individuals. One turns out to have been a Minecraft YouTuber, and about half again as many people get pissed off and leave. By the time I was a kid, it was just like 40 people out there praying to Chief Redcloud the Nephilim. Only like 12 or so actually believe it. The rest are just there, because where else can you get a 4-bedroom house for $300 a month? Grew up out there having to ride the bus 40 minutes on dirt roads to school in the nearby town. The old folks who were really into that hocus pocus would leave food for Chief Redcloud on stumps in the woods and pray to him and shit. The rest of the adults didn't really seem to care. My grandpa still runs it, but there's only like 12 old people out there now. Mostly my extended family. He's like 89 and fell down last week and ain't doing so hot. Probably gonna die soon. Once he does, unless an ordained minister of some sort takes it over, it gets donated to the Salvation Army, who don't want it, so it's probably going to become government property. Probably get bulldozed and go back to being public Forest Service land. I don't know, it was basically just some crazy revivalist who duped a ton of illiterate dirt farmers into donating their land to him. Not really that interesting, just kinda sad. Especially since it seems to have fucked over pretty much most people who lived there, and some actually died because of it, albeit indirectly. Anyways, I only remember 2 weird culty things happening. Once when I was like 6 or 7, some old lady who was like 97 went senile. Decides she can see and hear Chief Redcloud, and everybody would go to her for prophecies, which were mostly senile gibberish that could mean whatever you wanted them to. I recall her telling me I was going to be a fighter pilot who fights in Armageddon. That hasn't happened yet, and I'm 30, which is the cutoff age to commission in the Air Force, so yeah, so much for that. The second culty type thing I recall is about 2 months after my daughter was born. They wanted me to return to the colony to baptize her. I went along with it because it made all the old folks happy, and their life is pretty boring. Letting them see their great-granddaughter, niece, cousin, whatever was nice. I just treated it like a family reunion where some of your relatives are a bit too religious and left it at that.
Greek deity cult. Firstly, I'm making this because when I was told of this organization, if you can call it that, I was advised not to spread it around because the people of the organization would find out. It's been a couple years, so I feel all right about talking about it now. So I'm going to tell the story how I remember it. I had a friend in school that was a High energy user, a healer, a psychic, all that. She was kind of new, a few years in, to using her shit, but she was really good at it already. I was the same way, more so with physical stuff than spiritual, but that's not as important. It's just how I knew that she was the way she was. I'll go ahead and name her Bex. Bex did plays, theater was her thing, and one night after a performance, an 40-year-old-ish woman, call her Nav, came up to her and said basically that she was psychic too, and she could tell Bex of her past lives and shit. So Bex started hanging out with Nav, who became something of her spiritual leader. Bex wasn't allowed to tell me what they did, but she did tell me that there was a group under Nav of people about her age, and that I was possibly someone they were looking for. I am very good at sensing energies, and she had a darkness around her due to the people she was hanging out with, so I wasn't interested in joining. I told her what I thought, and she said it wasn't correct. We agreed to disagree, and she carried on. Months later, she stops hanging out with them and tells me why. Bex said that Nav was the leader and claimed to be able to help the people who followed her grow spiritually. It turned out this wasn't true. Actually, it was the opposite. Nav was siphoning the energies out of her followers and keeping them from growing and progressing, basically. She could manipulate their minds and used that to keep them loyal and obedient. Bex got out because eventually she realized all that, but that's not the fun part. What got me was that Bex told me this woman had said everyone in the group was a descendant of a Greek deity. Nav claimed that when she had turned 18 that everything became clear to her in a vision or something. So everyone in their group was some portion deity. Nav herself was a direct descendant of Artemis, I think, and my friend was a descendant of Athena. So they were chosen. I found it amusing. I mean, this woman was clearly crazy, even if she did have psychic gifts. She was a very good manipulator, and that was why the group of younger adults were following her so easily. But then Bex told me there was apparently another group, and I could possibly belong to it instead of Nav's. I didn't want any part of either group. Those groups were somewhat different, but they had similar goals. Bex told me that Nav had said the end of the world was coming, and it was bringing absolutely horrible things along with it. Many of those things would appear human, or actually be human. Nav said that they'd have to defend the world, and to do that, killing was necessary. At this point, I wasn't amused anymore. Nav was a crazy, and had a constant supply of money from her followers. I told Bex to stay away from the woman, and I moved from the area. We still keep in touch, and as far as I know, Bex hasn't talked with Nev or anyone from her group since then. But it's still fucked up to think about. Nav is still out there with her group, planning God knows what. I don't doubt the woman could sense when someone told about her secret group, but my friend told me and nothing bad happened. Maybe it's because she can't get into our heads as long as we keep guards up. Maybe it's because she doesn't care right now, because she's busy planning mass murder. I don't know. All I know is that she's crazy for it to be okay. I've been thinking about it lately. I can't help but wonder what that means. Anyway, /x/ has been boring lately, so I thought I'd contribute that story. At least it's OC. If people have questions, or if someone knows something about a similar group, it'd be nice to have a discussion on it.
I don't even care if it might be RP, that sounded legitly creepy. Fucking psycho, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, it's not RP, but I don't care if you don't believe me. Half the shit on here is fake these days. I don't blame people for automatically doubting. She is serious about it too. She basically told my friend she wasn't expected to do any killing at first, but as time went on, she would eventually have to. She told the whole group it would seem like some of the people they targeted didn't deserve to die, but they had to trust her and do what she told them. The worst part was that she had power to back herself up with. I didn't go and confront her about it, and I couldn't call the cops with some insane-sounding story like this without proof. So she's out there, building her group and planning to murder people.
I live in a 2-story house. A long time ago, it used to be a church. It now belongs to my grandfather, Cels de Coco, who had to adopt me from my mom. Anyway, I live on the 1st floor, and right above me is this room that once was basically grandfather's baller room. Had jacuzzi, pool table, and arcade machines. I've been told that shit was cash. But he had a lot of problems with the room. The jacuzzi would somehow tear its own filtering system up. He claims it's because people wore their swim trunks in the jacuzzi, and the soap on the trunks would damage the filter. But come on. and the arcade machines would often just straight up not work. Long story short, it's now just an empty room with a beanbag chair, a pool table, and 2 laundry baskets of toys with some toys on a shelf thing. Now on to the spooks. My friend Bradley would come over to my house a lot. Most weekends there'd be like 3, 5 people sleeping over. We'd all stay in my room for the most part, but we'd sometimes go upstairs for different reasons. Bradley refused to ever go up there alone, which we made fun of him for. But he took the ridicule and literally would never go up unless someone came with him. We were all around 15 or 16, so this wasn't some little kid type shit. He was seriously terrified. When I was a kid, I felt it sometimes too. I'd dart down the hallway when going back downstairs. One day, my grandfather came into my room pissed as hell. He says me and my friends trashed the upstairs room. We got up there and the toys are literally all over the floor. Like, this was beyond just forgetting to clean up after yourself. Someone dumps the toys out everywhere. We all told him none of us were up there. And eventually he was just like, well, a bunch of the little ones. He has a load of grandkids and like 5 great-grandkids who come over sometimes. Must have been up here. Me and all my friends pretty much agreed too. So after my friends left, I went to the game room to clean up all the toys. Didn't take too long, but then I saw something. A long time ago when I was like 11, 12, I had a pair of handcuffs my mom had given me. She is a drunk and druggie. She'd always give me random shit for some reason. And I handcuffed a stuffed animal to the pool table, so. My grandfather got pissed because we couldn't get the cuffs off, so they'd been there ever since. Well, these steel police-grade handcuffs were broken in half. Next time I say my grandfather, I told him about the cuffs, since there was no way a little kid could have broken them. He just kinda sighed and didn't do anything about it. 'Cause what the hell was he supposed to do? After that, I never went up there much. This incident with the toys happened 2 more times, once again shit being spread everywhere. After that, not much for a long time, eventually. Grandfather marries some girl, she sets up her office, she's a patent lawyer, in the bedroom next to the stairs, furthest away from the room. She's up there on her computer most of the time. Fast forward one year, me and my friends get into Yu-Gi-Oh! I have a ton of cards. Go to the room because I remember there are some there. Grab the cards, turn to leave. Just as I close the door, I hear something hit the floor. Go back inside thinking I knocked something over. A Robo-Dino toy is in front of the door. This toy was set up all the way across the room on the shelf. Put it back, leave, before heading downstairs. I tell Granddad's new wife. She's instantly spooked. She tells me about how she'll often hear noises coming from the room, thinking it's me and my friends.
Was it all a cult? I know it's dumb, but I was a national officer for the Boy Scouts of America's secret honor society called Order of the Arrow, a service fraternity for young men. However, in my hometown, the OA presence just seemed too involved. I wish I could say I didn't love it. I was a brother in OA for 7 years as a kid and now serve as an adult advisor. But nowadays, when I look back, OA really fucked with my mindset. The trails I went through to be in the service fraternity border on occults. Hear me out. The trials for OA are based on self-sacrifice. Initiates are brought into the woods by youth members at night, introduced to a ritual ceremony before sleeping on the forest floor with no blankets or anything. The next day, they do manual labor under the supervision of the OA's advisors. They do this with no food and little water for 1 day. Then the second day, they receive their honorary sash and membership to the OA. That's just the beginning. The farther you go along into the membership, you awaken yourself into new stages of enlightenment. The stages go to ordeal, brotherhood, and vigil. Vigil is the strangest of the 3 because it can't be earned. Instead, it is given by the old vigils of the OA lodge a member is a part of. I'm potentially getting myself kicked out if I get revealed by elders in the order, because the vigil ceremony is top secret and kept from the eyes of the public and the young members of the OA. The vigil ceremony puts a candidate into the woods by himself all night. They are told to keep a fire going and to never fall asleep or fail earning the rank. Near 6 in the morning, the vigil guides take the candidate to the OA circle. They find a circle made by vigils around a roaring bonfire. Before the flames will be the vigil chief, who will wear black robes and give a speech. His speech will involve hand signs and verbiage about how the great spirits will guide you through service and into the great beyond. The reason the organization will not release the vigil ceremony to the public is because in the ceremony, the chief would cut his palm and the candidates and make them blood brothers. Then the vigil members around the circle would tie a bandage around the candidate's palm. I know all this because I was a vigil chief a few years ago. It only hit me a couple weeks ago when going through old photos, how bizarre all the rituals were. How do us kids never questioned it? How we were never allowed to question it. The explanation for every question was centered around this father figure. New members would assume it was God, but the OA uses father to describe the BSA founder Baden Powell, which is really odd. I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking too closely at it. It just makes me squirm that all the rituals were to be kept a secret and new members were put through something dangerous.
Just because you perform rituals doesn't mean it's a cult. You only mention these ceremonial initiation rituals, but you don't actually talk about any actual beliefs or ideas which you get brainwashed with. You don't mention if this organization is exerting control over you, dictating who you associate with and where your money goes. It's not a cult, it's an organization that adopted imagery and ritual with no actual meaning or significance behind it.
Be me, freshman year of college, several years back. Start hanging out with this dude Jake and his group of friends. Find out many of them grew up together in a place called Oregon House. It's fairly close to Sacramento, but in the fucking cuts. Jake and his friends are the closest thing to good old farm boys you'll find in California. Jake invites me to celebrate a friend's birthday. I don't have shit going on, so I say sure. Drive up with my girlfriend and her friend. Driving further and further away from civilization, we nearly run out of gas on the way there, but just barely make it to an off some unlabeled road, but with a few other houses around it. Not some Innawoods shit. This was a neighborhood, just a very rural one in a heavily forested area. Finally arrive, stereotypical college party. Beer pong, vapes, etc. Everyone's just hanging out getting drunk. I have to drive home, so I'm hanging back a bit. Walk inside to grab some water with my girlfriend. The house is amazing. Tons of old, well-preserved furniture, musical instruments, and a grand piano in the center of the living room. Inside, I see a middle-aged woman say hi. She responds super meekly with an accent but very clear English. Says she's here for a 2-week vacation visiting her friend, our friend's mom. Girlfriend mentions she saw alpacas out back, and this woman lights up. Starts talking super in-depth about how to raise and farm alpacas. Don't think anything of it, walk back outside. 4 people I don't recognize from school show up. Mullets.jpg. They're getting drunk. One of the younger guys gets pretty fucked up. Comes over and sits with me and my girlfriend. We shoot the shit and smoke. I ask if he grew up here. Yeah, my family's been here for a long time, since before the fellowship. Cautious. 'Cause I don't know him well, but super curious. Ask him what the fellowship is. He responds really frankly about a New Age religion called the Fellowship of Friends. Says his mom joined when it was really culty, and then left a few years back. Starts going on about how there's a ton of Europeans, people from Eastern Europe especially, living around here. The Fellowship of Friends brings them in on R1 visas. I'm trying to stay open-minded, say, oh, that's cool, they're letting people come over like that. Guy laughs and says, yeah, until they want to leave. Starts to talk about this huge winery they own called Apollo, apparently award-winning wine. One of the guys he's with comes over and sits down. Little mullet guy shuts the fuck up. I walk over to Jake. He's super drunk, slurring his words. I asked him if he knew what the little mullet guy was talking about. He gets super shy all of a sudden, almost embarrassed. I dropped it. He tries to get us to stay the night, but we're pretty set on leaving. Cult didn't really help that. Grab my girlfriend's friend, say our goodbyes. We're in the car on the way home. As soon as we pull out of the driveway, we are frantically Googling. Fellowship of Friends, Apollo, etc. leads us to some of these links. There was also some videos on YouTube and an account by one of the workers on Apollo about being forced to drink coffee grounds and water to stay awake for their shifts. And then we found this account of someone being an hero by the cult, TELDR. Abraham Goldman was the lawyer for the Fellowship of Friends, hung himself because of medical bills. Wife says she didn't know he was worried about money. As soon as I read this, my girlfriend looks scared. I ask her what's wrong. Says Jake got really fucked up once and told them they have a lawyer in the family who lives out in Amsterdam. Was talking about how they aren't supposed to tell people. Says he has a bunch of money, but people are looking for him. She asked his brother about it later. He got really serious and told her she can't repeat that it isn't true. In the comments of that article, we find someone talking about Abraham Goldman's partner mysteriously disappearing after his death. Start to put the pieces together. Realize Jake's relative is in hiding after his partner was killed. Possibly stole from the cult. Realize the European woman is not here on a 2-week vacation. Who the hell knows that much about alpacas? Anyway, that's pretty much it. I've never brought it up with Jake because of how awkward he got after that. We did separately get confirmation that Jake's parents are members. Part of the cult paying a tithe on your monthly income, can't remember exactly how much. But Jake's dad works at Fang Company and makes a good fucking salary. I later found out from a friend of a friend who moved up there to do IT that the cult basically runs the local politics in Marysville, the town next to Oregon House. Also said they watch you like a hawk when you're on their computer.
So /X/ you want to hear a story? I'll give you one from my youth. I was about 14 or 15, don't remember the precise age, but it was about that time my friend and his parents decided to invite me on a holiday to Brighton for a few weeks during the summer. One particularly very hot night, me and my friend decided to go out for a walk due to the fact that we could not sleep. We walked for a while before coming to a forestry-type place. We decided to go in and have a look at what with it being a clear night out and the moon being particularly bright. As we roamed around, me and my friend stumbled upon a clearing in the woods. What we found was a circle with an ominous symbol of a snake entwined in a triangle which was facing upwards and another one facing in an upside-down formation, with another snake doing the same thing but reflected. Among this there were used candles and what looked to be a robe with bloodstains accompanying it. We decided to get out of there as soon as possible. As we exited the forestry, we made our way home through an empty park that was nearby to where we were staying. As we were walking, we noticed a tall figure dressed in black robes following us. We decided to pick up the pace and get back quickly. The ominous robe-wearer, however, did not seem to speed up in his/hers walk. They just kept at a steady pace. This just freaked us out more, especially since when I looked to turn again, there were 2 more joining the first person behind us. We both then decided to fucking run like hell and managed to hide from them without being noticed. When we got back, we both went back to bed and never told anyone else about what we had seen. A few weeks later, I phoned my friend to see if he wanted to hang out. His mother answered the phone and said that they needed to go away for a while, but that they'll be back soon. I have never seen them since. TF happened to them?
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.